In a T-72 racing across the Donbass, survival is usually a matter of volume. You listen for the shrill scream of a laser warning or the high-pitched buzz of an FPV drone. But there is a specific kind of silence that is far more dangerous. It's the sound of a normal day, the rhythmic rumble of your own engine, the distant dull thud of routine artillery. It's a peace that lasts exactly until the roof of your world turns into a furnace. Because somewhere 30 kilometers away, a Ukrainian artillery crew pressed a button, and two autonomous metal hunters dropped out of the sky looking for you specifically. This isn't a missile, it isn't a drone, it isn't even guided in the traditional sense. It's a 155mm artillery shell that splits open midair and releases two intelligent top-attack weapons that decide for themselves which armored vehicle deserves to die. And Russian tanks have almost nothing to say about it. We're talking about the Swedish-developed BONUS round, a smart artillery shell built by Bofors, now part of BAE Systems, in partnership with the French at Nexter, now KNDS. And in Ukraine, it quietly rewrote how safe armored formations actually are. Let's start with what makes this different. Traditional artillery is brute force. You fire, it lands, it explodes. If something armored happens to be there, great. If not, you crater dirt. BONUS doesn't hope something is there. It hunts. When a Ukrainian gun, whether it's Archer, Caesar, M777, or PZH-2000, fires this round, it behaves like any other 155mm projectile. Ballistic arc, standard trajectory, nothing dramatic. Then, at a programmed altitude over the target grid, the shell opens. Two cylindrical submunitions eject. They don't fall like rocks. They deploy aerodynamic braking, begin to rotate, and start scanning the ground beneath them using multi-frequency infrared sensors. Now this is where things get uncomfortable. Each submunition carries onboard processing. It doesn't just see heat. It compares what it sees against armored vehicle signatures stored in its internal logic, turret shapes, engine deck heat patterns, vehicle proportions. It's looking for the signatures of T-72s, T-80s, and T-90s, though it rarely gets a chance to look for a T-14 Armata, given how conspicuously absent they are from the actual front lines. If it doesn't detect a valid armored target, it doesn't fire. If it does, it fires an explosively formed penetrator straight down into the roof of the vehicle. And that roof is the weakest part of most Russian tanks. The T-72, T-80, T-90 family, built to resist frontal kinetic penetrators and shape charges, were never designed for precision metal slugs coming almost vertically from above. And here's the part that makes Russian planners grind their teeth. Each shell carries two of these hunters, two independent target seekers, two independent top attack warheads, potentially two destroyed vehicles from one artillery round. Now imagine a volley. You don't need line of sight. You don't need a drone operator guiding it. You don't need someone exposed with a missile launcher. You need coordinates of a grid square where armor might be staging. That's it. Range? Up to about 35 kilometers when fired from a 52 caliber NATO gun with base bleed design. That means deep behind what Russian crews assume is relative safety. The carrier shell weighs roughly 47 kilograms. Each submunition weighs about 6.5 kilograms and measures roughly 138 millimeters in diameter. Search footprint around 32,000 square meters per shell. That's not a pinpoint strike. That's a grid sweep. From launch to impact is typically under half a minute. By the time a Russian crew realizes specialized anti-armor artillery is involved, the EFP is already forming. And here's something important for the older guys watching who remember the Cold War cluster bomb debates. This isn't random scatter. Traditional cluster munitions disperse blindly. BONUS doesn't detonate unless it positively identifies armored geometry and thermal characteristics. It's selective. That distinction matters legally and tactically. Now let's talk Ukraine. Sweden supplied BONUS rounds after the full-scale invasion, along with Archer systems. Photos of submunition debris recovered in Ukraine confirmed operational use. Analysts began matching top attack damage patterns with known deliveries in late 2023. One of the earliest widely cited engagements occurred near Toretsk in autumn 2023. A Russian armored group, including BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles, was positioned in what likely felt like a relatively protected area. Then came the airburst. Footage showed mid-air detonation above the vehicles, followed by near-instant catastrophic damage consistent with vertical EFP penetration. BMP-2 upper armor is not built for that. It's thin, efficient, designed for mobility. Top attack turned it into scrap. Another engagement that circulated in analysis circles showed something even more uncomfortable. One shell, 2 BMP-3s destroyed. Each submunition acquired a different vehicle during descent and fired independently. That's not artillery saturation, that's autonomous discrimination. Now imagine being in that convoy. You're not being hunted by a visible missile team. You're not even being tracked by a drone you can shoot at. You're being evaluated by falling software. And that changes behavior on the battlefield. In another documented case, a Russian T-80 attempted to maneuver under a smoke screen. Old school thinking says smoke buys time. Break visual contact, reset the engagement. That logic works against optics. It works against laser-guided missiles. It even works against some drone operators. It does not work well against multi-frequency infrared scanning from above. The submunition doesn't care what you can't see. It cares about heat contrast, geometry, and profile. The result was a vertical strike through the top of the vehicle. The tank burned. Movement didn't save it. Distance didn't save it. Because bonus doesn't just destroy vehicles, it deletes assumptions. Russian armored doctrine relies heavily on staging zones, areas just outside immediate frontline contact where vehicles assemble, refuel, reorganize. Those areas used to feel relatively secure unless a drone was actively overhead. Now a grid square 25 to 35 kilometers back can become a kill zone without warning. That forces dispersion. Dispersion slows concentration. Slower concentration slows tempo. Slower tempo stalls offensives. This is where a single munition starts influencing operational behavior. Now let's move to December 2024. Open source analysis described a Ukrainian strike against a Russian convoy that included older T-62M and T-55 based engineering and mine clearing vehicles moving in column near a key crossing area. 3 bonus shells were reportedly fired. The intent wasn't just destruction, it was denial. Engineer vehicles are how you breach minefields. They are how you reopen lanes. They are how armored momentum resumes. Take those out and the entire push freezes. Even if only a handful of vehicles were destroyed in that specific mission, and public verification is always limited, the effect wasn't just physical damage, it was timeline damage, and wars are fought on timelines. Now let's talk numbers carefully. Analytical breakdowns over certain periods estimated that roughly 41 out of 176 destroyed Russian tanks in a sampled time frame showed damage patterns consistent with top attack sensor-fused munitions like bonus. That's not an official figure. It's an OSINT-based estimate, but it tells you something important. Bonus isn't the main killer. Drones, mines, ATGMs, and other artillery account for more losses overall. But bonus is disproportionately disruptive because it attacks armor in places armor expects safety. Next mechanism, active protection systems. Russian systems like Arena M are designed primarily to intercept incoming missiles, or RPGs, traveling horizontally. They detect approach, they trigger countermeasures, they intercept. Bonus doesn't approach horizontally. It creates an explosively formed penetrator almost directly above the target. The reaction window is microscopic. Even advanced APS architectures struggle with steep angle, near vertical threats, especially ones that aren't emitting long tracking signatures like a missile. So what's the solution? Add roof armor? You can, but every kilogram added on top raises center of gravity, reduces mobility, strains suspension, burns more fuel. Russian tanks already operate in weight margins that limit upgrade flexibility. There's no free fix. Now consider compatibility. Bonus doesn't require special launchers. It's compatible with most NATO standard 155mm howitzers, both L-39 and L-52 barrels. That means it fits seamlessly into Western artillery logistics. An Archer crew doesn't need to change doctrine. A Caesar battery doesn't need exotic integration. It's a similar story for the German Smart 155 round, the bonus's close cousin. While they do the same job, they have different personalities. The German Smart descends slowly under a parachute, while the Swedish bonus uses aerodynamic winglets to spin and scan. Different mechanics, same headache for a tank commander. It's just another round in the fire mission. Which means from a Russian perspective, you don't know which incoming shell is standard high explosive, and which one contains 2 autonomous tank hunters. That ambiguity forces caution on every artillery impact. Now zoom out. Bonus has a search footprint of roughly 32,000 square meters per shell. That allows it to be used against dispersed armor formations, not just tight clusters. It's not a sniper bullet, it's a smart sweep. And because each submunition independently evaluates targets, a single round can neutralize 2 separate vehicles if positioned correctly. That's cost efficiency, that's logistics efficiency, and for countries supplying Ukraine in limited quantities, efficiency matters. Now let's talk about something subtle. Time of engagement from firing to terminal effect is on the order of 25 to 30 seconds. That's barely enough time for a crew to process that artillery's incoming, let alone reposition a 40-ton vehicle in a meaningful way. You can't outrun geometry from above. And here's the human layer. Imagine being a 45-year-old tanker who trained for decades on frontal duels, hull-down positions, coordinated advances. You upgrade optics, you practice combined arms, you trust your armor thickness tables, then a shell you never see opens above you and punches through the roof like a drill. It's not dramatic, it's clinical, and that's what makes it unsettling. No duel, no heroic exchange, just deletion. Now here's where this stops being about a single shell and starts becoming about battlefield math. Because Bonus doesn't operate in isolation. It plugs into a layered ecosystem. Ukraine already forces Russian armor to worry about FPV drones from above, mines from below, javelins from the front, and artillery from the flanks. Bonus adds something different: long-range, indirect, autonomous top attack without drone persistence. That means even if electronic warfare suppresses drones, even if weather grounds quadcopters, even if smoke covers movement, the artillery network still works. And that introduces a new mechanism: redundancy. Modern warfare punishes single-point solutions. Russia invested heavily in electronic warfare to blind drones. But Bonus doesn't require a live video feed. It doesn't require GPS terminal guidance. It doesn't require constant operator correction. It rides a ballistic arc and makes its own decisions in the final seconds. You can jam a drone operator. You can't jam falling physics combined with onboard IR pattern recognition in half a minute. Now zoom into doctrine. Russian armored pushes often rely on concentrated thrusts. Stack enough vehicles, punch a corridor, exploit. That concentration is efficient for momentum. It is inefficient against area-searching top attack artillery, because concentration increases probability of acquisition. When a single shell can evaluate 32,000 square meters, clustering vehicles becomes risk multiplication. So what happens? Vehicles spread out, spacing increases, mutual support decreases, command and control stretches, tempo drops. Momentum is oxygen in offensive warfare. Bonus quietly reduces oxygen, and that brings us to logistics. A tank isn't just a tank. Behind it sits fuel trucks, ammo carriers, engineering vehicles, bridging equipment. Bonus doesn't discriminate between a T-90 and an armored engineering vehicle if both match armored profiles. Destroy a mine-clearing tank at the front of a column and the entire convoy stalls. Destroy a bridging asset near a crossing and maneuver options collapse. It's not about cinematic explosions, it's about choke points. And older viewers will appreciate this one. Think of it like the difference between smashing a hammer against a door and removing the hinge pins quietly. The door still looks intact. It just doesn't function. Now let's talk survivability myths. There's a persistent belief that heavy armor equals safety. That belief was built in an era where threats came mostly from the horizontal plane. Bonus weaponizes the vertical dimension without needing aircraft. That matters because air superiority isn't required. You don't need jets overhead. You don't need helicopters risking man pads. You need artillery tubes and coordinates. And artillery is cheaper than air power. This shifts cost ratios. A modern tank costs millions. A bonus round costs a fraction of that. When 2 submunitions from a single shell disable 2 armored vehicles, the exchange ratio becomes uncomfortable. Wars of attrition are fought on ratios. Now let's address the obvious question. Is this war winning by itself? No. Drones still account for massive numbers of Russian armor losses. Mines still cripple advances. ATGMs still ambush from tree lines. But BONUS doesn't compete with those systems. It complements them. And complementarity increases survivability problems exponentially. When threats come from below, front, side, above, near, and far, defensive adaptation becomes chaotic. Russian crews now operate under layered uncertainty. Is that artillery standard HE? Is it DPICM? Is it sensor fused? Is there a drone watching? Is there an FPV inbound? Decision fatigue sets in, and fatigue makes mistakes. Now imagine you're planning an offensive as a Russian brigade commander. You need armor mass, you need synchronized movement, you need engineer support, you need staging areas. Every grid square within 35 kilometers of a NATO standard howitzer becomes conditional. Not permanently lethal, but conditionally dangerous. That forces you to either accept higher attrition or slow down. Slowing down in modern warfare is often fatal strategically, because the side that maintains tempo dictates negotiation leverage. Now let's zoom even further out. BONUS was developed long before this war. It was designed in an era when Western militaries expected to face massed armored formations in Europe. In other words, it was built for this kind of fight. And now it's being used exactly the way its designers envisioned, against armored columns maneuvering in relatively open terrain. There's something almost ironic about that. For decades, European nations quietly maintained advanced anti-armor munitions, while critics questioned whether heavy artillery investment was outdated. Then 2022 happened, and suddenly 155mm guns became central again. Except now, instead of just blasting trenches, they release autonomous tank hunters. And here's the uncomfortable truth for Moscow. You can adapt to one threat, you can adapt to two. But when every layer of your armored doctrine is being stressed simultaneously, drones, mines, precision rockets, top attack artillery, adaptation becomes slower than attrition. BONUS isn't loud. It doesn't trend on social media like FPV footage. It doesn't give you dramatic missile trails. It just quietly removes vehicles from the equation. And in a war where armored survivability was once assumed, that quiet removal changes planning at the highest levels.